An heir apparent is a person, male or female, who is first in line of succession and cannot be displaced from inheriting by the birth of another person. An heir presumptive, by contrast, is someone who is first in line to inherit a title but who can be displaced by the birth of a more eligible heir. Today these terms most commonly describe heirs to hereditary titles, particularly monarchies. They are also used metaphorically to indicate an anointed successor to any position of power, for example, a political or corporate leader. The phrase is only occasionally found used as a title, where it usually is capitalized. Most monarchies give the heir apparent the title of Crown Prince or a more specific title, such as Prince of Orange in the Netherlands, Prince of Asturias in Spain, or Prince of Wales in the United Kingdom. See Crown Prince for more examples. This article primarily describes the term heir apparent in a hereditary system regulated by laws of primogeniture as opposed to cases where a monarch has a say in naming the heir. Heir apparent versus heir presumptive. In a hereditary system governed by some form of primogeniture, an heir apparent is easily identifiable as the person whose position as first in the line of succession is secure, regardless of future births. An heir presumptive, by contrast, can always be bumped down in the succession by the birth of somebody more closely related in a legal sense to the current title holder. The clearest example occurs in the case of a title holder with no children. If at any time he produced children, they rank ahead of whatever more distant relative previously was heir presumptive. Many legal systems assume childbirth is always possible regardless of age or health. In such circumstances a person may be, in a practical sense, the heir apparent but still, legally speaking, heir presumptive. Indeed, when Queen Victoria succeeded her uncle King William IV, the wording of the proclamation even gave as a caveat, saving the rights of any issue of His late Majesty King William IV, which may be born of His late Majesty's consort. This provided for the possibility that William's wife, Adelaide of Saxe-Meiningen, was pregnant at the moment of his death, since such a child, if born and regardless of the gender of the child, would have displaced Victoria from the throne. Adelaide was 44 at the time, so pregnancy was possible even if unlikely. Daughters in male preference primogeniture. Daughters may inherit titles that descend according to male preference primogeniture, but only in default of sons. That is, both female and male offspring have the right to a place somewhere in the order of succession, but when it comes to what that place is, a female will rank behind her brothers regardless of their ages or hers. Thus, normally, even an only daughter will not be heir apparent, since at any time a brother might be born who, though younger, would assume that position. Hence, she is an heir presumptive. For example, Queen Elizabeth II was heir presumptive during the reign of her father, King George Virgin Islands US, because at any stage up to his death, George could have fathered a legitimate son. Women as heirs apparent, in a system of absolute primogeniture that does not consider gender, female heirs apparent occur. Several European monarchies that have adopted such systems in the last few decades furnish practical examples. Crown Princess Victoria of Sweden, Princess Catharina Amalia of the Netherlands, and Princess Elizabeth of Belgium are respectively the oldest children of Kings Carl XVI Gustaf, Willem Alexander, and Philippe and are their heirs apparent. Princess Ingrid Alexandra of Norway is heir apparent to her father, and Victoria herself is a female heir apparent in her first child, Princess Estelle. Victoria was not heir apparent from birth, but gained the status in 1980 following a change in the Swedish Act of Succession. Her younger brother Carl Philip was thus heir apparent for a few months. It was reported in October 2011 that discussions would take place between the heads of government of the Commonwealth realms aimed at changing the rules of succession to the 16 thrones of Elizabeth II to give equal rights to females. Following the CHOGM meeting, which took place in Perth, Australia, between 28 October 30, 2011, it was announced that the rule change had the unanimous backing of all 16 member nations. However, the effects are not likely to be felt for many years. The first two heirs at the time of the agreement were already eldest-born children, and in 2013, William's firstborn son Prince George of Cambridge became the next apparent successor. but even in legal systems that apply male preference primogeniture, female heirs apparent are by no means impossible. If a male heir apparent dies leaving no sons but at least one daughter, then the eldest daughter would replace her father as heir apparent to whatever throne or title is concerned, but only when it has become clear that the widow of the deceased is not pregnant. Then, as the representative of her father's line, she would assume a place ahead of any more distant relatives. Such a situation has not to date occurred with the English or British throne. Several times an heir apparent has died, but each example has either been childless or left a son or sons. However, there have been several female heirs apparent to British peerages. In one special case, however, England and Scotland had a female heir apparent. The Revolution settlement that established William and Mary as joint monarchs in 1689 only gave the power to continue the succession through issue to Mary II, eldest daughter of the previous king, James II. William, by contrast, was to reign for life only, and his children by a wife other than Mary would be placed in his original place in the line of succession after Mary's younger sister Anne. Thus, although after Mary's death William continued to reign, he had no power to beget direct heirs, and Anne became the heir apparent for the remainder of William's reign. She eventually succeeded him as Queen of England, Scotland and Ireland. Displacement of heirs apparent. The position of an heir apparent is normally unshakable, it can be assumed they will inherit. Sometimes, however, extraordinary events such as the death or the deposition of the parent intervene. People who lost heir apparent status. Parliament deposed James Francis Edward Stuart, the infant son of King James II and VII, whom James II was raising as a Catholic, as the king's legal heir apparent declaring that James had, de facto, abdicated and offered the throne to James II's oldest daughter, the young prince's much older Protestant half-sister, Mary. When the exiled King James died in 1701, his Jacobite supporters proclaimed the exiled Prince James Francis Edward as King James III of England and James VIII of Scotland. But neither he nor his descendants was ever successful in their bids for the throne. Crown Prince Gustav, son of Gustav IV Adolf of Sweden, lost his place when his father was deposed and replaced by Gustav IV Adolf's aged uncle, the Duke Karl, who became Charles XIII of Sweden in 1809. The aged King Charles XIII did not have surviving sons, and Prince Gustav was the only living male of the whole dynasty, but the prince was never regarded as heir of Charles XIII, although there were factions in the Riksdag and elsewhere in Sweden who desired to preserve him, and, in the subsequent constitutional elections, supported his election as his great-uncle's successor. Instead, the government proceeded to have a new crown prince elected, and the Riksdag elected 1st August. Prince of Augustenborg, and then, after his death, the Prince of Pontecorvo. Prince Carl Philip of Sweden, at his birth in 1979, was heir apparent to the throne of Sweden. A year later a change in that country's succession laws instituted absolute primogeniture, and Carl Philip was supplanted as heir apparent by his elder sister Victoria. Breaching legal qualification of heirs apparent, in some jurisdictions, an heir apparent can automatically lose that status by breaching certain constitutional rules. Today, for example, a British heir apparent would lose this status if he or she became a Catholic or married a Catholic. This is the only religion-based restriction on the heir apparent. However, as of October 2011, the governments of the 16 Commonwealth realms of which Queen Elizabeth II is monarch have agreed to remove the restriction on marriage to a Catholic. A Swedish crown prince or crown princess would lose heir apparent status, according to the Act of Succession, if they marry without approval of the monarch and a government, abandon the pure evangelical faith, or accepted another throne without the approval of the Riksdag. A Dutch prince or princess of Orange would lose status as heir to the throne if he or she married without the approval of the States General, or simply renounced the right. A Spanish prince or princess of Asturias would lose status if he or she married against the express prohibition of the monarch or the Cortes. A Belgian duke or duchess of Brabant would lose heir apparent status if he or she married without the consent of the monarch, or became monarch of another country. A Danish crown prince or princess would lose status if he or she married without the permission of the monarch. When the monarch grants permission for a dynast to enter marriage, he/she may set conditions that must be met for the dynast to maintain a place in the line of succession. This also applies for crown princes/princesses. Heirs apparent who never inherited the throne, heirs apparent who predeceased the monarch, heirs apparent who were forced to abandon their claim, heirs apparent of monarchs who themselves abdicated or were deposed, heirs apparent as of 2014, see also, President-elect, Prime Minister-designate, references.